Hello, Utility Fleet World. It's Kurt Moreland, Associate Publisher with Utility Fleet Professional with another edition of Under the UFP Hood. You may have noticed in our magazine that we have a new advertiser this year, Caterpillar. We're very proud to welcome them to our magazine family. However, you may not be aware that there is a division of Caterpillar known as Caterpillar Safety Services. And if you've been following our podcast, we've kind of been doing a series about technology, how it benefits the fleet managers, AI, facial recognition. But then when you get all this technology together, what's the next step? Well, I'm very happy to introduce Kelly Scott, who's a fellow SIU Saluki Communications major and is the Utility Safety Services Specialist. Welcome, Kelly. And please tell us about Caterpillar Safety Services.
Yay, thank you for having me, Kurt, my fellow Saluki alum, including our workforce and also external organizations. We've been on our own safety journey over the last, 20 plus years. Like most companies, we just hit a plateau and we realized that we needed to try and do something different just to break through that. So we ended up finding a small family-owned company out of Portland, Oregon. Actually, they were called Core Media, and they had these proven processes and methodologies, and most of them focused on just operationalizing safety through building leadership and ownership within all levels of the organization. So that's what brings me here with you fine folks. Caterpillar Safety Services was born. So we've really just been trying to improve throughout our own facilities. So we've been applying those processes and methodologies internally, but we also partner with external organizations to help them, break through their plateau or improve as well. So we do practice what we preach. Definitely not here to say that we're perfect. Safety is a journey, and we do work at it every day. So, and by the way, we don't require you to actually buy yellow to partner with Caterpillar Safety Services.
Yeah, that's good to know. And, this ties in also with we publish Incident Prevention Magazine. We have our Incident Prevention Safety Conference. So this overlaps both of our media, I should say, which is fantastic. You guys have done some work with OSHA, and tell us about some of your T&D partnerships too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our team actually works with, all industries. But my main focus in my industries that I work within are utilities and pipeline. And we have a utility-specific workshop. It's called Safety Leadership in Action. And it is all about upskilling your supervisors, your frontline guys, gals on how to improve communications and effectively some tactical takeaways on how to build a stronger safety culture. There was definitely a gap in the industry. There was nothing out there that was really proactive in terms of leadership development within utilities, and it's such a niche industry. So we ended up partnering with the original ET&D industry stakeholders in the video content and creation, and then Safety Leadership in Action was born.
That sounds really good. So it's more than just training. It's about changing the culture at a company too?
Yes. And that's really, safety's more or less just a vehicle to drive that organizational change, right?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. And then some of the things that you guys work on, is there you guys work with companies on changing the mindset of their employees?
Yeah. And again, I mentioned that we're on our own safety journey, and more recently, probably the last year or so, we've really been focusing on building resiliency into our operations, and how we define, a resilient culture is one that is able to resist pressures, and that's internal and external pressures, budgets, project timelines, schedules, all the things that keep us on our toes on a daily basis. One that can adapt to change and bounce forward when something does happen, and that could be an incident. And then the ability to just recover quickly from challenges. And this is all about also being proactive in anticipating risk and also learning from our mistakes, right? And we found through all of our research and again, through, our personal journey that there's 4 primary components that really need to be considered and also factored in if you want to not only build a resilient safety culture, but also sustain it. Because that's, key, right? It's the focusing on the system. And this is, the system by which we manage our safety. Our SMS, it gives us those defined safety expectations. It gives us the policies, procedures that we need in order to identify and help to mitigate that risk. And mindset, that's the second one. So this has been our recent focus, is just creating that shared mindset. It shouldn't all be on the safety team, right? Safety is everyone's responsibility. People make mistakes, and we need to open up the environment and keep it open so that people feel safe enough to speak up when something happens or they notice something that maybe could lead to something negative. So in addition to mindset, it's leadership. So it's having these specific, consistent leadership behaviors within every level of the organization. We want that to positively influence everyone around them towards, having a safety first mindset. And also the last one is just ownership. And we can't really get that until we've got every level of the organization engaged. They are involved in helping us create and then continuously improve, the safety system that we have in place.
Yeah, now there's definitely, some generation gap out there with workforces. There's some veteran utility workers, and then there's a new generation coming up. And have you come across anything in the culture like that where it's, everybody has to kind of work together?
Yes. I mean, we definitely should always look out for one another. I do think it can, create a problem if our senior people on the job site aren't leading with that, safety first mindset, because it will influence anyone green coming on the job site. They'll think it's okay to do and take the same risks that the guy that's been there for 30 years, is able to take. So I think it's about setting the tone and really setting the stage for the right safety culture immediately when somebody comes on board. And I know you've been having a few different conversations about AI, and that can be great in just helping us try and leverage new ways to keep people safe on the job site. But I also think a big part that needs to be in conjunction with that is the human factor, right? Because at the end of the day, we still need people at the end of that AI. So I know there was a recent case study about driver safety systems a few years back, and it just kind of highlighted the differences between deploying a technology, just on its own, or deploying that technology in combination with organizational training that was in place to get ahead of what the cultural implications were of installing a driver safety system. So it was, I don't know if you're familiar with what driver safety system is. It alerts operators when there's a fatigue or even a distraction is detected. So obviously it's something to help try and keep operators safe. But in the case study, it was deployed at 2 different locations under the same company umbrella. So Site A, they resisted to having a need to focus on the cultural side and opted to just begin installing the cameras throughout their fleet vehicles. So those operators came onto the job site one day, hopped in the cab, and all they see is a camera in their face. So what do you think they were thinking? Oh, awesome. There was no training on how the technology worked or why it was there, what information it was collecting. So when alerts happened, all of those events were treated as operator weakness. And I'm sure you can imagine any of the input that those operators wanted to provide to give some context. Yeah, it was ignored. And the only time they actually saw any management on site was when something bad happened, a mistake. And of course, they just flew in to point fingers and blame and then left again. So they did see an improvement just in terms of the number of fatigue events. In fact, they had a 44% improvement, which I thought, hey, that sounds great. But on the other side of that, there were also 375 tampering events.
Wow.
Those tampering events are, employees who didn't understand why they had this technology. They didn't trust it. And every time an operator would, shield the camera by putting their vest or their hat over it, that was a tampering event. So that's high. That's a lot there.
Yes.
Yeah. The other site, which was, site B, we'll call it, they actually understood the value in building ownership, getting the workforce engaged, and they had everyone trained on why it was there. Again, bottom line is to keep people safe. They were trained to understand that mistakes are normal because we're human, right? And we should really learn from them, learn from the things that we do on a daily basis. Management was also present. They also established, guidelines for when a mistake or something different happened, because they wanted to be able to take that, learn from it, and then improve. So site 2 or site B, I forgot what I called it, experienced an 82% reduction in events.
Wow, that's huge.
Right. And guess what the best part? There were only 13 tampering events. So that gives you an idea of what you'd rather be a part of, right?
Exactly. Yeah. As I travel around and I meet with some of our reader groups, some of them have actually mentioned that although apprehensive about embracing some of the new safety technology, it's actually vindicated some drivers that were thought to have been blamed, but because of the technology, showed that they were not the people who caused an issue.
Right.
I would imagine being part of the Caterpillar brand name, everything, that you guys have a lot more accessibility to research and a lot more roots out there in the industry to tap into information.
Yes, we definitely work on that. And anytime we're engaged with a customer, or even just having initial conversations, and they let us know, well, I think we have, the right people internally to, develop our leaders and what have you. I think what we bring to the table is just these proven processes and methodologies that we know work because we're trying them out on ourselves. And also just that backing that we've done all the research, we've put all the time, the money, and the effort into understanding what makes, solutions effective and sustainable, which is the other huge piece, because you don't want to spend all this time and effort into, transforming your culture just to have it be forgotten in 6 months. It's not something that can happen overnight. It takes a whole lot of work and focus by everyone within the organization to get to that next level. And we want to make sure that it sticks, right?
Yeah, that makes total sense. So anybody who follows the podcast know that I have a fascination with animal encounter stories. And I heard that you have kind of a fascination with reindeer or caribou. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, now, Kurt, Santa's listening, so it's reindeer. I do. So I live in Peoria, Illinois. It was maybe 4 or 5 years ago when I discovered there is actually a reindeer farm, like 25 minutes outside of Peoria. And I am an animal lover and freak. I went to that reindeer farm and I've been hooked ever since. So now it's the day that I look forward to every year. I mean, they're like big dogs. They're very social. They're sweet.
Well, that does say a lot. That's a good animal to be connected to. And when you said you're hooked on them, hopefully you've never been hooked on their antlers, because I've actually been around some too. And when you're up close to them, it's amazing to look at their antlers.
And what I learned on my many visits to the reindeer farm is that both male and female reindeer have the antlers.
Oh.
And they're also the biggest and the heaviest of all deer species. Is that right? Yeah. And they shed them every year. I mean, I picked up one this past weekend. It could have been 30 pounds maybe. And that was one antler. It was insane. And I feel like they are such gentle creatures, but they are aware of what's on their head, because then there were 2 reindeer that had recently shed their antlers. They still thought they had the antlers on their head. So you could tell by the way they moved, they still thought their antlers were there. So, but they are definitely scary. I would stay away.
You are the reindeer whisperer. That's good.
No, that's what I tell them.
Maybe Santa will be calling you to enlist your talents to get the sled off the ground. Well, let's get back to a little bit of business. I'm kind of intrigued on how Caterpillar Safety Services does boots on the ground. So let's say that I'm a fleet manager and I want to change the safety culture, not for my drivers and my equipment people. Do you come out to my company, or do we do Zoom calls? Is there a lot of Q&A that goes on to begin?
Yes. And in fact, that initial discovery is really what gives us kind of the ammo in order to position you with the right solution. So it typically starts out with, a Teams meeting or Zoom, what have you, whatever you prefer. And it's just about learning what are those biggest challenges that you face, what are your obstacles, and it's just getting an understanding of the organization as a whole and what your ultimate goals are. If money weren't a factor, which often, sadly it is, but it's really just an understanding of where your challenges are, what your goals are, because sometimes, companies think they have a pretty good plan in place. They don't have a whole lot of incidents, and they think they're pretty good to go, status quo. A lot of times it's just looking behind the curtain, and it could be through like a survey, which we offer different surveys and assessments just to get some data, get boots on the ground and understand what's really happening. And sometimes it's taking a look at that information and realizing that things aren't as good as they thought. So whether it's, a company wanting to get even better than where they are today, take it to that next level, or a company that's really struggled to get, a safety culture set up where people care about one another and they're looking out to keep people safe. So, the journey with every customer is different. Again, it all depends on kind of what they're wanting to achieve. And there are a lot of different ways that we can help to meet them where they are and take them to that next level.
Like a lot of utilities have regular safety meetings. Do you assist with that or provide any type of material or training?
Yes, I'm always happy. I mean, the more people that we can speak with within an organization and get their point of view on what their challenges are and what they think the biggest gaps are that exist within when it comes to skill sets, the more conversations, the better. So if there is a safety meeting and a lot of the leadership will be present, if it happens quarterly or what have you, yes, I'd love to be invited. We can talk to just some of the different, ways that we can help support them. Or if, we don't even want to talk about that, we can just talk high level just to try to get them to think differently about safety and to get some, shared mindset.
And do you do that yourself, or do you you have a team that helps you with that?
I work within a team of account managers here at Caterpillar Safety Services, and we all have our own industries that we work with. and that we focus on. So it's typically us, because we are that first point of contact for our customers. So we are always wanting to learn about, what their issues are so we can best position a solution to help them. So it's usually us. And then once, a company decides that they want to partner with us, we will then bring in the big guns, which are our consultant team. They're actually all across the globe, and they're the ones that really, bring our solutions to life, right? They're in the trenches with our customers, trying to help them improve. It should really be part of, your company's DNA too. We're just coming in to teach you the methodologies to help you succeed. And eventually you won't need us around as much, right?
Yeah, when you form these partnerships, what's the time period on something like that? What's your experience been? Is it weeks, months, years?
It just depends on, again, what the ultimate goal is.
Mm-hmm.
It would be great if we could see improvements and make things happen in weeks. I don't think that's reality. It can take, years to see change. And sometimes it's starting off with just a couple of workshops, maybe for supervisors and managers. And then other times we've got larger, solutions like that embed continuous improvement. Those can take anywhere from a year up to 3 years. So it just depends on how committed, customers are to making that change, because it takes, not only budget, but also the time and leadership's commitment, right? To keep it relevant, to keep driving it. So there's so many factors that play into how long things can take.
Yeah, I'm really impressed that you're dedicated to our industry, that some organizations may have one person that goes across the board, so that shows your commitment to our market. Do you work with utilities, oil and gas, public works, kind of like everybody in our niche?
Yes, exactly. And that's my wheelhouse, so to speak. So that's what I talk about all day long.
I've really learned a lot about Caterpillar Safety Services. I've learned a lot about your commitment and what you guys are doing out there. This has been a new learning experience for me, and hopefully for other people in our industry who just think of Caterpillar as digging equipment. And what are ways that they can reach out to you if they want more information?
Yes, I'm always happy to talk with people, myself and my team. You can go to cat.com/safety, and there is a little button. You can submit your info to contact us, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Kelly Scott. If you have a good memory, you can reach out to me by email, Scott_Kelly, KELLY @cat.com.
Okay. Well, that sounds really good. Again, I want to thank Kelly Scott of Caterpillar Safety Services for being our guest and continuing our conversation on how technology and services are helping shape our market. And I just want to remind everybody, especially with the holidays coming up, to roll safe out there.
The views, information, and opinions expressed during this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Utility Business Media and its employees. It is strongly recommended that you discuss any actions or policy changes with your company management prior to implementation.